Hello students, a very good evening to all of you. Welcome to my channel. This is a very important class on Love You Shakespeare series, and today we will discuss the second part of Macbeth. But before starting, I want to give you a brief introduction about myself. My name is Brishti Mukherjee. I have qualified NTA UGC NET exam in English literature 4 times and have also qualified West Bengal state examination. I have 2 years of teaching experience. Moreover, I have also taught in NPTEL online course from IIT Madras 3 times. Good evening, Kriti. Welcome. So that is all about myself. This is the link of my Telegram channel. So those of you who have not joined yet, please join to get notification of all important classes. The link is also given in the description box. And please don't forget to like, share and subscribe my YouTube channel so that many more new learners can join. And these are the timings of your classes: Monday to Friday at 8:30 p.m, Saturday, Sunday off. So don't forget to join me live. Please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon to get notifications. Okay, so in yesterday's class, we have started discussing the plot summary of Macbeth and we have completed up to banquet scene. So today we will start from there. In the banquet scene, what happens, and then we will complete the play today. So let's start. Macbeth plot summary part 2. So in yesterday's class, we have seen that Macbeth has planned to kill Banquo, and Macbeth has arranged a special banquet after becoming the king. He invites all the other thanes and kings and also Banquo, and Banquo promises that, my lord, I will attend the feast. Okay, so later what happens, that act 3 scene 2, it is actually the conversation between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, and for the first time after the murder of Duncan, for the first time after the murder of Duncan. So this is very important, and this conversation is important because from here onwards we can see that gradually these two people, Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, they are gradually becoming detached from each other. Lady Macbeth is more concerned about her own guilt consciousness, and Macbeth becomes a hardcore criminal later, and he doesn't want even to discuss about his future plans with Lady Macbeth. So a division between these two people started from there. So it is a conversation between Macbeth and Lady Macbeth, and Lady Macbeth is suffering from terrible guilt consciousness. And Lady Macbeth realizes that what she has actually thought, that she can lay the guilt on the bodyguards of Duncan, and Macbeth will remain safe, but that has not happened. Actually, this murder has taken away their comfort and peace, and Lady Macbeth refers it as doubtful joy. Why doubtful? Because they have not received that amount of respect, that amount of peace and luxury which they actually expected to receive after the murder of Duncan. That is why it is a doubtful joy according to Lady Macbeth. And Lady Macbeth is very much in dilemma that whether this action was actually justified or not. Good evening, Shushmita. Welcome. So she realizes that we have done nothing good by murdering Duncan, and that is why she is more and more isolated from Macbeth, and also she is suffering from terrible guilt consciousness. Okay, and Macbeth says, but Macbeth is not so much feeling guilty, but Macbeth is rather trying to secure his throne. In yesterday's class, I have told you a statement of Macbeth: to be thus is nothing but to be safely thus. Our fears in Banquo stick deep. So Macbeth just wants to secure his position as a king. Okay, and Macbeth believes that we have scorched the snake, not killed it. Here, the snake refers to the danger, or you may say the potential threat of Banquo, because Banquo is still alive. So Macbeth says that we are not properly We are not properly secured right now. We have to kill Banquo. Macbeth is hinted here in this particular line. We have scotched the snake, not killed it. Okay. Now, Act 3, Scene 3, this is the scene of Banquo's murder. Okay, remember that in Act 3, Scene 3, Banquo is murdered, but Fleance escapes successfully. So, how is Banquo murdered actually? When Banquo and Fleance, they are coming to join the feast, the killers who have given the responsibility to kill them, they suddenly pounce upon them and killed Banco, but Fleon successfully escapes. Okay. Now, Act 3, Scene 3, the murder is done. In Act 3, Scene 4, which is known as the banquet scene, very important scene in Macbeth. Banquet scene. Okay, so Macbeth finally arranges the banquet, and on the day of the banquet, he is waiting for his best friend. Now, the murderers come at that time and report Macbeth that Banquo is killed by cutting his throat. The murderers reveal the fact that Banquo is killed by cutting his throat, and Banquo is completely dead because his body has 20 deep wounds and it is thrown into a ditch. And they have also informed Macbeth that Fleance has escaped. Fleance has escaped. So Macbeth is very much disturbed after hearing that, but and then Macbeth asks that is Banquo's murder confirmed? Then the murderer says that yes, his murder is confirmed because his body is thrown into a ditch, so that nobody can find any trace of the body. Okay, so that is what the murderers report to Macbeth. Now, Macbeth has started the banquet, and Macbeth constantly says that I'm missing my best friend Banquo because his seat is only blank. Otherwise, all of you are present, and I'm so much missing my friend. I don't know why he is not coming right now. And when Macbeth says thus, Banquo's ghost attends the feast. Ghost arrives and sits on the chair reserved for him. Now, only Macbeth can see the ghost. That is also very interesting. And he starts behaving unnaturally, abnormally. He is very much horrified. And Banquo's ghost is completely expressionless. He is just staring at Macbeth, which is all the more frightening to him. We will discuss also the significance of banquet scene in the next class. So Macbeth is horrified and behaves unnaturally. Now Lady Macbeth realizes that something is wrong. Lady Macbeth also tries to console Macbeth that you are whatever you are seeing, it is just the hallucination, like the dagger you have seen before murdering Duncan. So forget it and behave normally because you are the king, you are in a banquet, everybody is looking at you, what are you doing? Lady Macbeth is trying to bring him back to sense, but she fails to do, and Macbeth constantly talks to the ghost of Banquo in an incoherent manner. Lady Macbeth realizes that something is wrong, and she dismisses the guests hastily. She says that Macbeth is now suffering from that kind of a terrible disease, a terrible mental trauma. He always hallucinates something, and he is very much shocked because Duncan is murdered in this way, and that is why he often has to face this kind of terrible fits. So now he is unwell, so please leave, all of you. Thus Lady Macbeth dismisses the guests, and finally the banquet comes to an end abruptly. So here the banquet scene ends. Yes, absolutely, because Lady Macbeth sees lying in useless and chooses isolation. She tells the things to leave. Absolutely. Good evening, welcome. Good evening, Devasri. Welcome. Good evening, Shushmita. Okay, so yes, absolutely right. That is why Lady Macbeth has tried to remove all the things, all the guests. Okay, we will discuss the significance of ghost, the arrival of the ghost in the next class. The next class will be on the significance of all those important scenes: banquet scene, opening scene, murder scene, dagger scene. We will discuss all these scenes in detail in the next class, and there will be a critical comment on all those scenes. Today we will just finish up the plot. Okay. Now, after the banquet scene in Act 3, Scene 5, the witches reappear. The witches reappear and they are planning to assure Macbeth with false sense of security. With false sense of security. Again, the witches are planning to ruin Macbeth. Okay, and Macbeth is referred as the wayward son. Macbeth is referred as the wayward son. Remember that this kind of minor questions can be asked in your exam. So, wayward son, Macbeth is referred as wayward son. Now, Hecate, the goddess of the witches, orders the witches to meet with her in the pit of Acheron, the river of O in classical mythology. So, the name of Acheron is also there, which is the river of O, river of sorrow in classical myth. So, Hecate is instructing all the witches to meet with her in the pit of Acheron. Okay, now this is a very brief scene. Now act 3 scene 6, this is important because here for the first time Lennox is suspecting Macbeth for all these, for the murder of Banquo also and for the murder of Duncan obviously. So Lennox for the first time expresses his suspicion for Macbeth. And Macbeth is very angry at Macduff because he was absent in the feast. Only Macduff was absent. Only Macduff was absent in the feast, and that is why Macbeth is very angry at him. Okay. Now, Act 4, Scene 1, which is another very, very important scene, and this is actually known as the cauldron scene, or it is often called the death banquet scene. The death banquet, because why is it called death banquet? Because we have already seen one banquet scene which was organized by Macbeth. Okay, and they were all human beings, right? Macbeth, Banquo, and all, not Banquo, Macbeth and all the other things, they are all living beings who have attended the banquet. But this banquet is completely different. It is organized by the witches, and there are horrible ingredients which are being served as foods, and it signifies a world or a separate world of the witches, which is actually in sheer contrast with the normal human world, and the whole world is turned upside down when it comes to the witches. That is why it is called the death banquet scene, and it is also known as the cauldron scene. So in Act 4, Scene 1, we find that the witches are preparing to bring some spirits from hell, and they are preparing some magical charms. So they have set a huge cauldron for on fire, and inside that cauldron they are throwing some ingredients one by one, and the ingredients are horrible, like the eyes of the newt, the liver of a Jew, the tongue of a dog, the leg of a lizard, the wing of an owl, the finger of a dead child, another dead body of another witch. So all these kind of horrible things are dropped inside that cauldron, and they are set to boil with baboon's blood. There is no oil, there is no water. They are set to boil with baboon's blood, and thus they are preparing to bring infernal spirits from hell. Okay, now here another thing is mentioned. The name of the third witch is mentioned, that is Harpier. Remember that Harpier, the name of the third witch, is mentioned in the cauldron scene. Yes, absolutely. There is a resemblance between Macbeth and the witches. All are wicked, all are unnatural. Yes, and it is established almost at the beginning of the play, where the witches are saying, "Fair is foul, foul is fair, hover through the fog and fill the air." And before meeting the witches, Macbeth also says, "So foul and fair a day I have not seen." So it is a clear echo of the words of the witches, and obviously Macbeth has some kind of connection with the witches. And it is also told that there are three witches in the play, but actually there are four witches, and Lady Macbeth is actually the fourth witch. That is also mentioned by some of the critics. Anyway, we will discuss Lady Macbeth's character later in our class. So coming back to the plot of Cauldron scene, so they are preparing to bring the charms, and now Macbeth again comes to meet them. Why? Because Macbeth feels very much restless. Everyone is suspecting him. Though Macbeth has murdered Banquo, still he doesn't feel any kind of peace because Fleance has escaped. So Macbeth is very much eager to know his final outcome. What will happen to him ultimately, as he has no children? So what will happen to the throne of Scotland after his death? Will it really be true that Banquo's descendants will serve as the successor as the uh, successors of Scotland? Will it really happen? Macbeth just wants to become sure of that. Okay, so that is why Macbeth again comes to meet the witches, and the witches have brought three apparitions. Okay, the first apparition is an armed head. These things are important. First apparition is an armed head, and it tells it tells Macbeth, beware of the Thane of Five. Thane of Five is actually Macbeth. Okay, so beware of the Thane of Five. That was the warning given by the first apparition. The second apparition appears in the form of a bloody child who has assured Macbeth that you cannot be killed by any man who has born naturally out of a woman's womb. The power of man, for none of woman born shall harm Macbeth. Now the third apparition, who is actually a crowned child with a tree in his hand, and he says that Macbeth can never be defeated until the Barnawood will come to Dunsinane Hill. Macbeth shall never be vanquished until great Barnawood to high Dunsinane Hill shall come against him. Okay, so these are the three apparitions, three false sense of security offered to Macbeth. Now Macbeth asks another question, that whether Banquo's descendants will rule the throne of Scotland or not. Then the witches present before him an illusion, and that in that illusion Macbeth visualizes a procession of eight shadowy kings, and the last man or the last shadow is Banquo with a mirror, and through the mirror Macbeth can see similar kinds of shadows, and the procession is endless. So Macbeth realizes that this prophecy cannot be changed. Banquo's descendants will rule forever, but he feels much relaxed because he cannot be killed. He is almost immortal. Okay, now when he comes back to his kingdom, later Lennox informs that Macduff has fled to England. Lennox informs Macbeth that Macduff has fled to England, and Macbeth is already angry with Macduff. Now Macbeth is very much Macbeth becomes furious after knowing this. Okay, now in Act 4, Scene 2, which is called the second comic relief, but there is a debate that whether it is really a comic relief or not. Because in the later part of the scene, we will find the death or the murder of Macduff's wife and children. So it is not properly a comic relief, but yes, it is some kind of deviation from the plot. Okay, because before the final battle the stage is set with a scene of domestic harmony, and this scene is introduced just to introduce the character of Lady Macduff and her son. So Lady Macduff and her son are introduced here, and the little boy is as resolute as his brother, as his father, and he is asking some basic questions about treachery. And what is treachery? Lady Macduff is answering his query. So that is about this particular scene. Now, at the end of this scene, it is revealed that Macbeth suddenly comes to the castle, and Macbeth cannot find Macduff there because Macduff has already fled to England. And out of rage, in a heat of the moment, Macbeth kills Lady Macduff and her son. They are murdered brutally. Okay, now in Act 4, Scene 3, Malcolm is testing Macduff's loyalty in various ways. This is a very interesting scene. It is also one kind of deviation, or you may say that distraction from the main plot. So Macduff has already joined Malcolm in England, but Malcolm is suspicious whether Macduff is really loyal to Malcolm or Macduff is still supporting Macbeth. So Malcolm is testing Macduff's loyalty in various ways, and Macduff laments the condition of Scotland or the condition of their motherland in the hands of Macbeth. Macduff is very, very sad and he says, "Bleed, bleed, poor country, great tyranny. The great tyrannical ruler is Macbeth." And Malcolm deliberately puts the vices of Macbeth before Macduff just to know or just to test whether Macduff really has some kind of feelings towards Macbeth or not. Okay, but indirectly it reflects the vices of Macbeth, and at the same time it is a treatise on good governance. मैकबेथ किस तरीके से रूल कर रहा है स्कॉटलैंड को इस ये भी बताए जा रहे हैं, एंड एट द सेम टाइम इन कॉन्ट्रास्ट मेलकॉम ये कह रहा है कि आइडियल किंगडम कैसा होना चाहिए, आइडियल रूलर कैसा होना चाहिए. सो इट इज अ काइंड ऑफ imagination of an ideal kingdom which is there inside the mind of Malcolm, and Malcolm wants to execute that with the help of others. Now, Macduff says that what is tyranny? As a definition of tyranny, Macduff says that boundless intemperance in nature is tyranny. Boundless intemperance is tyranny. It hath been the untimely emptying of the happy throne and fall of many kings. So Macduff says that tyranny is very bad and tyranny is almost boundless, and it is the cause of the fall of many major kings in history. So it must always be avoided. Okay. Now here an interesting thing occurs. The character of a doctor is introduced. The doctor comes and talks about the disease of scrofula or king's evil. तो इस डिजीज के बारे में जो पता चलता है, इट इज टॉकिंग अबाउट किंग सिविल बिकॉज ये रॉयल फैमिली में ज्यादा होता था. ठीक है, एंड जेम्स द फर्स्ट के नाम से इसको किंग सिविल कहा जाता है. तो ये एक ऐसा डिजीज है जिसमें ब्लड पॉइजनिंग होता है, एंड जितने अमाउंट ऑफ ब्लड आपके पॉइजन होता है उसको बाहर निकाल दिया जाते हैं एंड उस जगह में फ्रेश ब्लड पुट कर दिए जाते हैं. दैट वाज द ट्रीटमेंट. Okay, so it is talking about king's evil. The doctor is talking about king's evil. Now the speech of doctor actually serves as a contrast to Macbeth's tyranny. There is no other purpose, and it refers to Edward the Confessor, heavenly king, whereas Macbeth is evil. A contrast create hota hai between Macbeth and the other ideal kings. Now, later Ross informs Macduff that his wife and children are killed by Macbeth. तो ये information उनको Ross से मिल रहा है. ठीक है. Now in now we will come on to Act 5 Scene 1, which is a very important scene, the sleepwalking scene. The sleepwalking scene. Okay, here we again find the character of Lady Macbeth, who is very much depressed, very much shocked, suffering from terrible mania, and it is very different from the Lady Macbeth we have seen in the murder scene, where Lady Macbeth is saying, "Unsex me here, come infernal spirit." So that amount of masculinity has now lost. Lady Macbeth is not well. The doctor even cannot guess her disease. The gentlewoman says that the light is constantly on in her room. Lady Macbeth orders that light cannot be switched off because in the darkness of the night, Lady Macbeth is haunted by that particular scene of Duncan's murder. And constantly she is hallucinating blood in her hand, and she constantly washes her hands to remove the smell of blood. Actually there is no blood, but it is a mania from which Lady Macbeth is suffering, and he constantly says, "Out, damned spot, out, I say." Damned spot is the spot of blood. She becomes a maniac patient. Lady Macbeth is gradually becoming insane, and she finally says, "All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand." And the same woman says in the murder scene, "A little water can clear us of this deed. How easy is it then?" That was the dramatic irony. उस टाइम में लेडी मैकबेथ को ये इजी लग रहा था कि उस टाइम मैकबेथ ये कह रहे थे कि ऑल द waters of the oceans will turn red because I have done so heinous a crime that I cannot even wash the stain of blood from my hand. उस टाइम में जो बात मैकबेथ कह रहा था, अब उसी बात लेडी मैकबेथ कह रहा है, ठीक है. So that is how the situation gets changed. And the doctor realizes that Lady Macbeth is suffering from terrible fear inside her, and it is a result of guilt consciousness. So the doctor says unnatural deeds do breed unnatural troubles. And he realizes that there is something wrong in Lady Macbeth's character. He realizes that Lady Macbeth is traumatized for some guilt feelings. And the doctor finally says, God, God, forgive us all. God, God, forgive us all. This line was asked in PSC exam, that God, God, forgive us all. ये line किसने कहा था? So it is actually said by the doctor. Okay. And the doctor says that Lady Macbeth needs some divine assistance than some medical assistance. अब God की ज़्यादा ज़रूरत है medicine से भी. ठीक है. Now, in Act 5, Scene 2, everyone is planning to take revenge on Macbeth. It is a kind of a discussion among Malcolm, Macduff, and other thanes and soldiers. Now, here Malcolm's grandfather's name is mentioned, that is Seward. Okay. Angus declares that they will meet Macbeth before Barnamoot. Angus भी इसमें plan कर रहे हैं. ठीक है. Now next what happens, two minor characters introduced, Caithness and Menteith. They are the other characters who are also in Malcolm's army. Okay. Now Angus has given the famous clothes imagery of usurpation, which is very frequently used in Macbeth. So remember that Angus has given that analogy. Now does he feel his title hang loose about him like a giant's robe upon a dwarfish thief? So Angus is talking about Macbeth, that Macbeth has owned a particular dress, the dress of kingship, which is completely misfit for him. तो मैकबेथ किंग बनने के लिए सूटेबल पर्सन नहीं है, एंड मैकबेथ जो लोगों से छीन कर ले रहे हैं वो एक्चुअली उसके बॉडी में फिट नहीं हो रहा है. ठीक है. तो हैंग लूज अपॉन अ डवार्फिश थी. Now, in Act 5, Scene 3, Macbeth is in his castle Dunsinane. Then he is informed by a messenger that 10,000 soldiers are marching towards the kingdom. So the final battle is gradually ensuing. Macbeth speaks painfully to Satan. Satan, I am sick at heart, Macbeth is saying, and I also want to go away from this life. I also want to get rid of this life. Macbeth requests the doctor to use any drugs like rhubarb, senna, etc., to drive the English soldiers away from the kingdom. Macbeth is saying this kind of speech, and in Act 5, Scene 4, Malcolm orders the soldiers to hew down a bough of the forest before them. Exactly what the witches had already said. In Act 5, Scene 5, Satan informs Macbeth that his wife has committed suicide, and Macbeth का जो reaction है ये बहुत ही ज़्यादा controversial statement है कि Macbeth क्या बताने की कोशिश करे. Macbeth is completely emotionless. He doesn't even shed any tear for Lady Macbeth. Rather, he says the single line, "She should have died hereafter." Now, there are multiple meanings of these lines. Some critics say that Macbeth is trying to मैकबेथ इज नाउ बिजी टू सेव हिज ओन लाइफ. तो इसलिए मैकबेथ ये कह रहा है कि लेडी मैकबेथ को अभी मरना था, क्या थोड़ी देर बाद वो नहीं मर सकती. दैट काइंड ऑफ इमोशन वाज देयर. और कुछ क्रिटिक ये भी कह रहा है कि शी शुड हैव डाइड हियर आफ्टर. मैकबेथ इज ऑलमोस्ट एक्सेप्टिंग द रियलिटी कि हाँ ये तो होना ही था, लेडी मैकबेथ ने जो किया है उसको मरना ही था. ये भी हो सकता है. ठीक है. So varieties of meanings are there, and it's a very controversial line what Macbeth has said. Then Macbeth utters his famous soliloquy, tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. You all know this soliloquy, and ये एक बार क्वेश्चन में भी आया था, ये पूरा soliloquy दिया था and बीच बीच में कुछ words missing था, so fill in the blanks था. तो इसको जरूर याद कर लेना, complete soliloquy. Tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time, and all our life have laid the way to dusty death, ऐसे करके कुछ था. Out out brief candle, life is but a walking shadow, a poor player that starts and frets on the stage and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Yes, absolutely. Macbeth has become so numb because of his own terrible actions that he can't even react when his wife dies. All he can do is to comment on how meaningless life is. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. And here Shakespeare has done a brilliant job. And because this soliloquy is the most famous part of Macbeth, it is oft quoted. And here we can realize how a criminal is repenting for all his deeds, and finally Macbeth also wants to die, he also wants to invite death. And maybe Macbeth also says that Lady Macbeth has done a good thing by committing suicide, that is why he is saying she should have died hereafter. But Macbeth can't do this because he is a soldier, he is a heroic man, so he has to fight. Right. Now then we will also discuss the significance of this soliloquy in the next class. A messenger reports that Barnum Wood is moving and Macbeth is now terribly shocked. Macbeth and Macduff finally are in face-to-face battle. Macduff is untimely ripped from his mother's womb. That is discovered at the end of the play. That this is the crux inside the speech of the witches. That born naturally of woman's womb cannot kill Macbeth. And Macduff says that I am a Caesarean baby. I am untimely ripped from my mother's womb. So I am your death standing before you. Now, finally, Macduff kills Macbeth by beheading him, and Malcolm is declared as the lawful king. Okay, so that is about the story. Now, I will tell you an interesting thing about this play. We have already said that 3, 7, and 9 are the unlucky numbers in this play, right? So, Macbeth has employed three murderers to kill Banquo. The three witches are present in the text, राइट. एंड ऑल्सो जो एपaritions मैकबेथ को दिखाया गया इन कॉल्ड्रॉन सीन, उसका भी नंबर 3 था, 3 एपaritions था. राइट right? अब देखो एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग बात है, शेक्सपियर ने किस तरीके से कैरेक्टर के नेम्स को चुना है. मैकबेथ 7 लेटर है मैकबेथ के नेम्स में, राइट, 7 लेटर्स. नाउ मैलकॉम, here also 7 letters. Donald Bain, also 7 letters. Okay. Fleance, Fleance, also 7 letters. So these characters have 7 letters in their names. And if we talk about Banquo and Duncan, देखो बैंको के नाम में 6 लेटर है, डनकन के नाम में भी 6 लेटर है. तो इसका क्या मीनिंग है? इसका मीनिंग ये है कि मैकबेथ तो ऑब्वियसली एसोसिएटेड है विचेस के साथ, बट मैकबेथ, मैलकॉम, डोनाल्ड बेन, फ्लियंस ऑल आर पार्ट, सॉरी डोनाल्ड बेन में 9 लेटर्स. yes, so Macbeth, Malcolm, Donald Bain, Fleance all are part of that group who have done violence, राइट. तो ये जो है ये मतलब आप कह सकते हो कि ये अगर कॉलोनाइजर कॉलोनाइज्ड के तरीके से कहो तो दे आर द पीपल हु हैव डन वायलेंस ऑन अदर्स. ठीक है. मैलकॉम, डोनाल्ड बेन, फ्लियंस ने भी मिलकर मैकबेथ को मारा था. तो which is also unethical because Macbeth is alone on one side and they are attacking Macbeth with a huge army. So all of them are associated with blood. Okay, that is why all of them have ominous numbers in their letters. But the truly innocent characters are Banquo and Duncan, who have no association with blood, who have not killed anyone. वो किसी का भी बुरा नहीं चाहता. Banquo loves Macbeth very much, and Duncan is also a great fan of Macbeth. तो ये दोनों बहुत पहले चले गए एंड इसके लेटर में इसके नाम में 6 लेटर्स है, which is not an evil number, but 7 and 3, they are the evil numbers associated with their names. Okay. Macbeth This is difficult to say. Macbeth is like an anti-hero, I should say, because in the beginning of the story, we find Macbeth is a truly heroic soldier who has done so many things for his countrymen. But later, Macbeth has transformed from a soldier to a hardcore murderer. And finally, Macbeth's heroism is also praiseworthy, because when Macbeth realizes that he cannot fight, he cannot live anymore, he has to surrender. Then also Macbeth says that no, I will not surrender before Malcolm's feet without doing any battle. I will fight, and then whatever happens, I will accept. So even at the time of death, at the time of sheer short uh, mm, destruction, Macbeth is very much heroic. So I should say that Macbeth's character is a combination of heroic and villainous attitude, and the better word is anti-hero to say. Macbeth is both a hero and an anti-hero. Okay, so that is about this play, and that is the end of the play and today's class also. Thank you all for joining. This is the link of my Telegram channel. Those of you who have not joined yet, please join to get notification of all important classes. So these are the timings of your classes. We will again meet on Monday. Monday at 8:30 p.m. we will discuss the significance of important scenes in Macbeth. ऑल जितने भी सीन्स है हम सारे सीन्स के बारे में बात करेंगे. इंपॉर्टेंट सीन्स इन मैकबेथ वी विल डिस्कस, and then we will complete Macbeth and start some another play. Okay, so don't forget to join me live. Please subscribe the channel and press the bell icon to get notification. Okay, so thank you all. Bye bye everyone. Good night. See you all Monday at 8:30 p.m.